on that?
I second.
All right, thank you, Marianetta. So we can start with, I believe, our roll call. And I know that Craig was typically doing that, but should I do that tonight? I know that Craig retired the past month, so many, well wishes to him. Okay, perfect. So I will do the roll call. So Allison Buck.
Present from Ann Arbor.
You. Jamal Buford.
Bufford, but present.
Oh, Bufford, I'm sorry.
No problem. Present Superior Township.
Thank you. David Esau.
Present from Ann Arbor.
All right. Sophie Grillette.
Sophie Grier, present
Grier, I'm sorry.
Present on Sanibel Island in Florida.
Very nice. I hope you're enjoying that. And we have John Kotarski, we know is absent this evening. Peggy Leonard.
Peggy Leonard. Present from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Sophie, I'm so jealous. Sanibel is my most favorite place on earth. I'm going to pretend I'm with you.
Marianetta Porter.
Present, Ann Arbor.
All right. And Lynn Song.
Present, Ann Arbor.
All right. Wonderful. And then we have Vanita Harrison with us as well. And Sky Stewart. Welcome. Hello, everyone. All right. So, do we have any public comment today? It's like we can move forward from that, and then an approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
A second.
Thank you, Allison. And then we can move on to old business, or sorry, approval of minutes.
I think we need to vote after we get a second.
Oh, vote. So a vote on the approval of agenda.
Aye.
You can raise your hand. Aye. All right, great. Looks like we can move forward with approval of minutes, and this is from both December 2021 and our January 2022 meeting because our February meeting was canceled. Is there an approval of the minutes from those past two meetings?
I'll move.
All right, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, and it looks like
then Sarah, then we do some discussion and then we vote.
Okay, so discussion of the minutes from the past two meetings.
This is David. In the January minutes, the Fundraising Development Working Group, the description of what we talked about is completely garbled. I'm not sure exactly what it should be, but it makes no sense.
Okay. I see. It looks like there are a few typos perhaps in the fundraising and development work group. So I can read out what we have right now. Endowment is held in the Ann Arbor Community Foundation. So it looks like we just need to take a look at that paragraph again and just correct any of those typos. All right, is there anything else from any of the meeting minutes? Besides that paragraph from the January meeting? All right, then I think we can move forward to any, and sorry, then we vote on the approval of the minutes from January and December with pending those changes for that paragraph.
Well,
So
we either need to postpone the January one or just remove that whole paragraph because it doesn't make any sense to include it as it is.
okay, so we'll approve the December, and then maybe Vanita and I can work on that paragraph.
Okay.
And we'll bring it to the next meeting so we can just approve that formally.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So then do we have a vote to move forward with at least the approval of the December minutes?
Aye.
Raise your hand. Aye. All right. Perfect. We can move forward then on to any old business. And it looks like we have nothing on the agenda for old business. Is there any discussion we'd like to bring up with old business? I'm going to take that as a no. So we can, then do we vote on the approval of moving on from old business?
No.
No. Okay. So we can just move on to new business then. And it looks like we have a report from staff. All right. So do we have a report on the presentation, the mayoral presentation for the Golden Paintbrush Award winners?
Sarah, are you sitting on that committee?
Yes, I am sitting on that
For the
committee.
stairwell project?
Yes. Well, this is first we had the Golden Paintbrush Award winners on the
right.
agenda for report from staff.
It was under old business that we just went past.
Yeah, I think the meeting agenda that you're looking at, Sarah, is different than what I have in front of me. Mine has two things under old business, the one that you're referring to right now, and the Black Lives Matter mural update.
Okay. I must have an old draft then. My apologies. Okay, well, so I guess we'll do a report from staff with those two items.
So what we had initially, I can go ahead and guide if you want me to, Sarah, from here forward, if you can't find that. Okay, sure. So we have an old business. We have the Golden Paintbrush Awards. And that was just a reminder that those awards went to City Council, and there was a presentation for all four of the recipients, and they seem to be pretty excited about that, as well as we provided their tile and their plaques here for pickup in City Hall. And I think I have just one person still needing to pick up their award, and it seems like things went really well. I watched most of them, and they seem to be really appreciative of having the honor of being accepted for this Golden Paintbrush Award, as we brought it back after how many years, I can't remember, but I think it's a good thing. And I like that we will hopefully continue to be able to do that for folks. The Black Lives Matter, this was just an update. Go ahead.
Lynn, were you at that meeting? Can you kind of give your perspective on how that all went over, how the council participated or did not in that?
Well, the mayor gave the awards, and other council members didn't comment really, but I mean it was great. It was really nice to see other artists come to the meeting and speak to their work. The artist who does the chalk drawings, David, yeah, he was really lovely. What was nice was that he actually spoke to other folks that he worked with, so it was nice to hear how it's just not the artists working alone, that they rely on other folks to support them. It was really sweet. It was a really nice way to begin a meeting. Yeah, so thank you for all of your work behind that. I think Travis was excited to see that come through too. So I had nothing to do with it. I was just there for the meeting. So I think he was really happy.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Lynn.
Mhm.
The Black Lives Matter update. We're still working with the group to get this organized a little bit better. I think that Councilmember Randina is still working one-on-one with the Assistant City Administrator, as well as working with the mayor to try and make sure we're following the guidelines. I think they have a meeting set up, I think at the end of this week or next week. You want to jump in here, Councilmember Song? Sure.
I spoke to Mr. Fournier. Well, I've been trying to chase down the details of all this for a little bit. So it was just kind of, I think, digging through some inboxes. And I talked to, I finally was able to reach Mr. Fournier, and he has a meeting tomorrow with staff. And I really pressed upon the need to finalize this before Juneteenth. We need an end date for this to happen. And he said he'll give me an update tomorrow, and I'll share that as soon as I get it on what the logistics will be like and what we need to do if there's anything else that we need to do.
I had a quick question about the project. Is it planned to go on Catherine or 4th at this point?
I don't know.
I only asked because when we were looking at, I think it's when we were looking at the CIP list of projects, and maybe I just know this because my office is on 4th Ave. That's supposed to be reconstructed within the next, 5 years. And so I wondered the impact if it went on a road that's scheduled for reconstruction, how that would happen.
I'll ask. I can call John in the morning and double check him and ask that question. I think they were just trying to figure out which office, if it was under, for a while we were talking to the attorney's office, and now it's back to the administrator's office. And I also had a meeting with Mr. Dahoney too, so he has a heads up that this is working. But I can ask where exactly they're looking to put it. Right now it's just confirming who's responsible.
I think the last time we spoke, I think the project was on hold potentially just because of the winter months and not being able to plan the actual facilitation of getting it together. So thank you for that update, Lynn.
I mean, the city administrator's office says they're definitely looking to make this happen.
Great.
It's been too long. And I also asked Ms. Fournier to speak with the library, since we've got some folks here who have murals at the library. So there's definitely a way to get this done in a timely manner. We have a good example right there at the library. So no excuses. So we'll get this moving.
Great. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Any more discussion on that piece of old business? All right, then I think we can move on to the next piece of old business that we had. Vanita, do we have something else on the docket?
We were all set with old business.
Okay.
Want to go to the staff report?
Yes, let's go ahead and move on.
All right. Do you have the update, or you want me to go ahead and I can?
That would be great. I'm sorry.
Okay, yep, no worries.
The old draft. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So the first update we have here is from the water treatment plant stairwell project. This is just an update from staff on where they are. Sarah, are you on that panel?
Yes, I am. So the final 4 muralists have submitted their work, and we will be meeting to decide on the final project this coming Thursday, the 10th. So that project is moving forward. And we have some really, again, great submissions. And we're really excited to move forward. We met kind of in between getting these submissions just to talk about preparation of the wall itself. and, just kind of reaching out to all of our finalists on how they would like the wall prepared. The water treatment plant is working with a contractor that, would be prepared to give more of a flat surface as opposed to these kind of cinder block walls that it will be painted on. There's an opportunity within that building process to actually change the wall itself. So we ended up just giving that option over to the muralists in terms of getting that wall prepped in certain ways. So having that just be a part of that conversation. So they've submitted information about that as well, because they're doing quite a larger project, in terms of updating the plant. So we look forward to meeting on Thursday and making that final decision.
Thank you. Next, we had the city flag redesign project. This is again just an update. And Councilmember Song, I think you have seen this before. This is another one of those items that we're still needing some feedback from Mayor Taylor. We were charged to do it at one point, and then it seems like it kind of was pulled back. So we're still interested in doing this if there's a way to find that out.
Yeah, I think we really need to work more closely with Mr. Dahoney and just kind of getting that through, because he seems like it just makes more sense to have him help coordinate staff on this. So I'll task myself with asking Mr. Dahoney what are our next steps, because I'm not really sure if Christopher has anything else to do besides saying it would be nice to have.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Could
Thank
I
you
ask
so much.
who Mr. Dahoney is?
Oh, he's our new city administrator. He's
And do-
amazing. So he came in earlier in the fall, was trained by our first Black city administrator, was mentored by him. Mr. Dahoney's from Louisville, Kentucky, was the city administrator for Cincinnati. Just came from a similar position in Arizona. So he's managed much larger cities. He's fantastic. So he's just a great executive, great just getting things done. So he's unflappable. I think he's starting to understand how we have this long wish list of projects in the city, and he's been able to kind of mobilize the right folks to get things going. So instead of just leaving it on Christopher's plate or for things to languish in email inboxes, it's been helpful to kind of give Mr. Dahoney a heads up and see who else we can engage and get things going. But yeah, he's wonderful. We're really lucky to have him here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you, Councilmember Song.
I think there was some discussion on the flag redesign project in terms of what working group that was assigned to. I think we had initially put that during our December meeting under the outreach working group, but there was some discussion about moving that to the special projects working group. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back up because we did add that to the annual plan. And I just want to confirm that we have a consensus on which working group would take that project on once we're ready to move forward with it.
We're finding a huge overlap between outreach and special projects, both in personnel and what we want to work on.
Yes, I mean, I think it could really fall under either. I remember the conversation in December about putting it under outreach was because the outreach working group had kind of absorbed the youth outreach working group, and there was some discussion around the flag redesign being targeted specifically to youth in our community as well. So I just wanted to bring that back up to make sure we have it under the right work there.
And next we have upcoming commissioner appointments. We have Sophie, David, and Peggy. I know that both Sophie and Peggy have submitted their reappointment applications to the city clerk to continue. And maybe I should let David say this part, because I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. David, you want to let everybody know what you've decided to do?
Yes, I'm not being reappointed.
So
Sorry to hear that.
we do have some applications on file, and some new folks have submitted applications. And I know that both Sarah and Jamal have received copies of those. I'll reach back out through the city clerk to see if we have any additional prospects coming up. And then we would, if Sarah and Jamal, if you've looked at the handful that you have already, if you are interested in a few people, maybe you want other folks on the commission to take a look at them and then maybe have some conversations, it might be nice to actually at least get someone else placed. And we're missing one spot right now. With David gone, we'll be missing two. So let me know how you want to work that out. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I think there were two, at least one with a high recommendation, if not two.
Okay.
So we can definitely keep that moving forward. And we're sorry to hear that, David. You are such an amazing member of this commission. And how many years have you been on the commission?
I don't know if it's 5 or 6, basically 2 terms.
Well-
What are you officially stepping down, David?
I don't know if Anita is at the end of May or something, or beginning of May.
Okay.
I think the term ends the end of May, yes.
Yeah.
We'll miss you.
Thank you.
We will.
And I would be open to continuing to work on CIP or something else like that if you need kind of regular citizen involvement.
We need a
would
regular
love-
citizen for sure.
Yeah. We will always say yes to that offer.
Yeah, right.
So thank you again so much. And again, sorry to see you leave, but
I'm not gone
Thank-
yet.
yeah, right. Not yet. We have you for a couple more months. All right. So we will definitely work on looking at some more applications in the meantime. And I think it would be a great idea to maybe bring this to a larger group too.
And a reminder too, just if you have folks who are interested, they can always go to the city clerk webpage, go into the Public Art Commission, and you can do an application there online. It takes you right into the site to produce an application if folks are interested.
Yes, and that actually brings me to a great new resource that Vanita shared with me earlier today, actually, about just getting involved with the city in general. Vanita, can you speak to that resource a little bit more, that new webpage?
Yep, it's really the public engagement. We've got a public engagement committee here at the city. We have approximately 35 members dealing with equity, diversity, city challenges, and how to help local citizens and residents understand what's happening in the city of Ann Arbor. So the engagement team recently came out with a new site that allows the public to go in and look at things that are happening with the city, gauge interest in what they may be interested in participating in. So I shared that with Sarah, and I can certainly share it out with everybody just as an information item. So if there's something you're interested in doing, if there's a task that you'd like to be assigned with some of the different groups throughout the city, working tiers, it's just getting started, but there are quite a few options out right now if you're interested. So I can send that after we meet this evening so you can take a peek at it.
That would be fantastic, Benita. I visited the page and it's just a wealth of resources. So great thing to look at yourself and with any of your networks.
Yeah, what we were finding with the engagement committee is that folks were not sure where to go. Whether it's I'm hearing the information from a local church or from a community center or just a neighbor. After discussing that within the committee group, everybody just seemed to be on the same page that we really just needed one location for everybody to go. The city does have different tiers within our website. If you're interested in engineering, well, you can probably go directly to the engineering page and click an interest link there. But for folks looking for other opportunities, so we're excited and eager to get that out to everybody. So pass it on. It's going to be a really good resource to find out what's happening and what's moving around here in the city. Okay. My last item is somewhat along the lines of the agenda committee. And let me just go back through this here 1 second. We want to make sure that we did this last year, the agenda item that we submit every year. What I haven't been able to find, and I have to apologize, is we submitted an item to council for the Public Art Commission. What I thought I shared at one point, maybe it's been a while since we've seen it, but I shared at one point a list that was prepared by the city administrator's office that doesn't generally clearly define what our ask was as far as the Public Art Commission. I think there is a blurb within the most recent submittal that says promote more art and be accepting and of creation of more art within the city. And so my response back to the city clerk was to clarify what happens when we looking to make this exact same ask for this next year coming up, because we didn't get anything back from the administrator's office, whether where we were accepted or what's moving forward. Does that mean there's a portion of funding that we get to use for the commission to move forward our ideas? So I'm sharing this just so you know that we've got a deadline coming up, and we probably will need to get a little bit more information before we submit an item for the Public Art Commission.
What do we need to gather or provide or tell them? I mean, is there something we should be bringing to you?
I am going to gather what we submitted, and I think this may be 2 years. I think we last submitted this almost maybe at the start or middle of COVID at some point. So I'd be willing to get a small group together if you like and pull out our prior documents, and then we could go from there and look at adding something to the next agenda. But we also would need to meet the March the 31st deadline.
So Vanita, is this the letter that we put together with Ali asking for funding?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Deb and Ali and I put together a letter asking for a certain amount of funding, which we all discussed at a couple meetings about how much we wanted to ask for in order to do the work of promoting the art collection, and just never heard anything back really.
Well, is this a good time to talk about the ARPA funding? And I don't know if everyone's seen the draft allocations for the federal relief ARPA funding that the city administrator had published last week. So the draft so far that will go before, that's already public to council, but with more details will be coming from the city administrator on March 7th, is proposing an allocation of $500,000 to the arts. And I'll just read this paragraph if you don't mind. Says we have heard loud and clear from the arts community that they would like to have a portion of these funds dedicated to artists who have been the most adversely affected by the pandemic. So we would propose the city create a grant program to award up to $10,000 to artists to pursue an artistic endeavor that would be displayed or performed in the city of Ann Arbor. This would be direct payment to artists rather than to art institutions, nonprofits, or businesses. My recommendation, this is Mr. Dohoney, would be that we ask a local arts organization to help administer the award process. So that's being proposed by Mr. Dohoney with more details on March 7th, and then a final council vote on these allocations and approving federal funding for a number of projects, everything from unarmed crisis response, universal basic income, and then the arts will be on March 21st. So we have Deb Pollock, I think, to really thank for her outreach, and then you'll see, and I'll forward this memo. Mr. Dohoney and staff had also included her emails as examples of the kind of outreach that came to council and came to staff. I went to a number of the community engagement meetings that staff had hosted, and Deb was there. She was at a number of the sessions, as well as social service agency directors. So, you know, it was an interesting situation where folks had to speak to everything from food gatherers to the arts, and how the city should prioritize this pandemic relief funding.
That's great to hear that that's moving forward. And Allison had shared that email with the group, and I think when we met for communications, we discussed it there as well. So I'm really glad to hear that Deb is pushing it forward, and it will be discussed.
Yeah. So if the commission itself has anything in addition to say, then it'd be a good time to advocate for council, you know, on March 7th, our first meeting of the month before we vote on the 21st. If you want to make a statement or, I don't know, you know, say that you fully endorse this allocation, or if you have any recommendations on its implementation, that would be really helpful, I think, to Mr. Dohoney, and for folks who there'll be considerable debate at the table on what this means, because this is the only area that was particular to an industry or sector, whereas, you know, most of the other allocations were for infrastructure or new programs that wouldn't receive funding from the general budget. So this was, and then the size is pretty considerable too. I mean, that's $500,000, which is the same amount for community and law enforcement data platform. That's the Police Oversight Commission has been asking for, you know, traffic stop data and more accessible traffic or police data. So this is a big allocation, and $100,000 to Liberty Plaza improvements. So $500,000 it's a pretty good chunk of money.
Yeah, that's very significant. So I can definitely draft something that I can send to you, and I can, you know, kind of try and get that to you this week. I can send it to the fellow commissioners as well, just to take a look, make sure everything looks good, and we'll definitely add a statement to put behind that.
And I would echo kind of what you were saying about having it be administered by an arts organization. I mean, staff could definitely do it as well, but someone who, I think it should be clearly defined what an artist is and who qualifies. And I think we as a commission have talked a lot about including musicians and performance and all of that as a part of art. So would be open to seeing lots of types of artists supported.
Absolutely.
So,
It would still definitely be an option for it to be housed here within our own finance department. Oftentimes, this is just my opinion, when we send those out to have somebody else administer it, we're paying them money to do that. So if there's any kind of way that it can still stay in-house, and be done through our finance department, which we already do have some funding line items set up. I kind of agree with Allison just to toss it out there so it doesn't get a portion of that money just goes out to somebody else for, and in any case too, anybody looking to receive some of that, we still want folks to be able to come through the art commission to ask for those funds and receive those funds. So it will matter how it will be either internally or externally.
Okay.
Sarah?
So we can we'll draft something and I can send it out to everyone for any edits before submitting to you, Lynn, and we'll try to get that to you this week.
I think Sophie has something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see all the hands. Sorry, Sophie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, should we be proposing putting together a group of organizations in either under our aegis or joining everybody together to help decide how the funding should be issued or suggest ways it should be done? I mean, it's quite complicated, and there's a balance between trying to make sure, well, half of it's trying to make sure that people know it exists and encouraging them to apply, but then you have to decide how it's going to be distributed, which is really quite difficult. And so I don't know what we would suggest. Have we got a suggestion how that should be done? And what organizations might be involved and stuff like that?
Maybe it would help if I gave an example of another funding project, which would be Universal Basic Income, the UBI program. And the idea is we're allocating $500 a month to folks who meet a certain criteria over a period of 3 years. And then the discussion so far, so nothing is actually operationalized. This is just kind of a drafting of where the money is going to be prioritized. The implementation part hasn't been decided yet, but so far discussions have been who our partners are on UBI would be potentially the county, the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, and we've already talked about, like, if all three have this effort, if there would be an RFP process, so that wouldn't be three separate entities administering three different UBI programs. But nothing, it's just so early in discussion. Staff can't really do anything until council votes for approval for this allocation, and then they can get into those details. But having that kind of rough direction beforehand helps as we debate, because a lot of the details for these programs will be debated on the 21st when we vote on it. So if we can similarly follow the folks who advocated for UBI, or even the money for coordinated funding for social service agencies, where agencies are preparing information saying, please, thank you for the allocation. This helps us, considering that we have 2 to 3 times the number of service requests during the pandemic. Just having those kind of data points and reference points for council and staff to think as they kind of finalize all the details would be really helpful. And just, if you can send that before the 21st, then we can debate. Then we can have an informed debate on that versus, I guess, just speaking to our favorite projects that we've individually advocated for. So nothing's written in stone because we still have to vote for it. But you can definitely send ideas on how you would like it to be written in stone or painted.
And at this point, what's proposed doesn't have any funding for nonprofit arts organizations. It's just artists, right?
Right. And it's a rough. I mean, you can see on the memo. There's big draft across it. But if you want it moved in a different way, if the Arts Commission is saying, great initial idea, but other cities do it this way, we would recommend doing the this other route, this would be the time to say it. Because Vanina's right. Odds are, if we put it out for an organization, there'll be an administrative cost, right? Yeah, those are important details. And I don't know if we have the capacity to manage a grants program. I don't know if we've done it in the same way before, or at this size. I don't think we've done $500,000 before. Oh, you're on mute, Vanina.
I kind of knew I was still on mute because I was coming from the standpoint of we can do it, we can figure it out.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. So we'll gather some data points and put together a statement and get that to you then.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's all that we had for staff. And now we are on the committees, working groups.
Okay, so we can start with the CIP working group. David, do you want to take the lead on that one?
Sure. We probably have to spend a fair amount of time on this. We've got 2 reports for you. One of them is basically an update on projects that were previously approved by council, where we're just giving you an update. A lot of projects have disappeared from the CIP because of things like train stations that were in there for a while and are gone. A number of them, let me get to the right ones. A number of them just haven't happened yet. And there are some projects that have moved forward, but without art in them because they were projects that were funded by, through the DDA or through the Housing Commission or something like that, where council has officially approved artistic enhancement, but the council's say really doesn't have any say over those projects. So nothing has happened with them. So there's really not a lot to report in that respect. The second document is more important. That's our annual report of new items in the CIP or items that we have not previously recommended for enhancement. So there are 4 new items that we are recommending for enhancement. Fire station number 5 replacement, which is up on North Campus of U of M. It's a city fire station, but it's on North Campus property. They're tearing that one down and building a new one. Some tennis and basketball court renovations where we're talking about probably painting murals on the courts. Downtown alley improvements. It's not really clear exactly what that is, but we thought that might be worth asking for enhancement in conjunction with what the art center is doing in the alleys. And then Briarwood Mall Ponds is a stormwater project that we thought might have some potential. So most of them, the fire station is a good sized project. Most of them are small, but those are the ones we are recommending to add. That same memo also has a list of things that we approved last year. They were presented to council in the March 15th, 2021 meeting, but I have not been able to find anything in any minutes saying that they were actually approved by council. And Deb Goslin, the CIP person for the city, had no record of being advised that the council had approved them for enhancement. So we believe that council never actually voted on them. They were just provided them for information, which is not the way it's supposed to happen, unfortunately. So we are trying to get those resubmitted this year, and hopefully we can actually get council to vote on them. But first, we need your recommendations to move these forward.
All right. We have a recommendation to move them forward.
I will certainly move.
Fantastic. Thank you, Allison. And I believe we have the final drafts of the CIP report ready to go, right, David?
Yeah, the drafts that were included with the packet that Vanita sent out this week were the ones that that our committee worked on.
Right. So they're ready to go to council then and be voted on.
Yep.
Perfect.
once we all approve them now. So we have to do a motion, like, are
Yes.
there any discussion, and then all in favor? Yeah.
All right, so any discussion? All right, and then a vote.
Thank you,
to-
David. That's the
Yes,
discussion.
thank you. And then a vote to approve. I will raise my hand.
All right.
Right, wonderful.
Thank
We
you.
can check that off the list. Thank you so much, David and Allison. And then we have our outreach working group. Anything to report? All right.
Sophie, you want to take the lead?
Yeah, let me just get this up. Okay, I'm assuming you can see me. I can't see you. The outreach group met in January, and try and make this thing small. Yeah, the outreach group met in January, and we went over what the things that we'd already agreed the outreach work group should be doing, kind of brought them down to these bullet points: raise awareness of the Art Commission and its work, stimulate discussion of public art in Ann Arbor, facilitate public art making, especially but not exclusively by youth, inspire and solicit ideas and projects from individuals, businesses, and organizations, and encourage and normalize ownership and buy-in by the public of Ann Arbor public art. And we were inspired by the Monument Labs projects that they've done before. We wanted to do a survey of the community, and Monuments Lab is going to be visiting later this month in Ann Arbor, and I would encourage all of you to go to the talk by them, which is part of the Penny Stamps lecture series. But Marianetta was going to describe some of the things that they've done and what we could do similarly. So I would like to hand over to Marianetta.
Okay, I'm not too technically savvy, but if I hit the share screen, let's see. When I hit the share screen, I get a notice that says the host has disabled screen sharing.
Vanita, does she need to be promoted as a panelist in order to share her screen?
Yeah, when I signed on, they asked me if I could join as a panelist, and I said yes.
Okay. So we might need to do something else to allow you to share your screen. Vanita, would it be possible to enable her to share her screen?
Let me try again.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, hold on a second.
She's on it.
Okay.
I already have you listed as a panelist, Marietta.
Yeah, I when I hit the share screen button, I get a notice that says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Anita, maybe what you need to do is, you're the host. Can you make her the host for a few moments? Oh, there you go. Or
Okay.
co-host. Good. Now she should be able to.
Okay.
Story of my life.
Can you guys see this?
We can. Success.
Can? Oh, okay. So we had interesting, Peggy and Sophie, we had interesting discussions, and it's really interesting, Vanita, that you bring up this public engagement committee, because that's kind of what we talked about. This whole idea of public engagement through public art, kind of spearheaded our conversation. So most of us, when we think about public art, we think about murals and statues in the landscape that beautify our surroundings. But oftentimes our engagement with those things are passing. We're driving by or walking by, and we only notice them at a moment's glance. And there's been a whole new conversation among artists and activists that are trying to reimagine kind of what public art might look like that really spurs public engagement. And so we started talking about that. And so Sophie mentioned Monument Lab. One second, I'm doing something wrong here. How do I?
If you go along the menu at the top, you can get the slideshow.
Okay, let's see. I was looking for, oh yeah, gotcha. I see it. I was trying slideshow. There you go. Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now, so the Monument Lab is actually coming to Ann Arbor on the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if that's going to be a live presentation or whether it will be Zoom, but it's being sponsored at the Michigan Theater by Penny Stamps. And Monument Lab is a nonprofit public art and history studio that's based in Philadelphia. And they've been working with artists and curators and activists and educators and civic organizations to rethink the ways that we think about monuments and public art. In 2017, they teamed up with Mural Arts Philadelphia, an organization there, to produce a citywide exhibition organized around a central question. And that question was, what is an appropriate kind of monument for the current city of Philadelphia? They engaged 20 artists, commissioned them to create a temporary monuments throughout the city. They engaged 5 different city squares, 5 neighborhood parks, and essentially had public art extravaganza, kind of like a biennale all throughout the city, and also in some satellite kind of locations. And so a couple of the artists, I'll show you, Tadia Bugiria did a monument to new immigrants. It's a statue of an immigrant child. The child is kind of unmarked by race or gender or ethnicity, but it's made out of material so that the monument over time disintegrates. And so there's a kind of time element to the piece. Hank Willis Thomas did a huge kind of Afro pick and planted it right in the spot where the statue once stood of the Philadelphia Mayor Frank Rizzo, who was a very controversial kind of character. Another artist, Sharon Hayes, did a piece. She was really concerned about the absence of women in public spaces and did this piece called If They Should Ask, where she had empty pedestals engraved with women's names, famous women from Philadelphia, their names on these pedestals. And so some of the sites actually just became places for impromptu community gatherings, readings, poetry readings, musicians would play a set. So the public art actually kind of encouraged people to engage with it in some meaningful ways. At each site, they set up these kind of modified shipping containers, and they asked the public to fill out questionnaires about what they thought would be an appropriate monument for Philadelphia. There were lots of suggestions. Someone suggested that there needed to be a monument for Black American soldiers. Someone else thought that there should be monuments or a place where jazz performances could happen. Someone else said that they needed to have a statue that celebrated Man Ray, the sculptor, since he was from Philadelphia. Other people talked about disability access to public art. So they really kind of spurred this conversation with the public about public art. They then did another project in St. Louis where they teamed with the St. Louis Museum called Public Iconographies. And in this project, they worked to build an atlas of the city, marking traditional and unofficial sites of memory throughout the city. So residents were asked to identify existing monuments, potential monuments, and monuments or landmarks that have been erased from history. So they mapped all of this. So what you see here, they over 1,000 places were mapped, and those places in green are those monuments in the city that have been recognized. Those places in blue are places that are existing without recognition. Gray areas are those places that were demolished or erased, and the red areas are the citizens' proposed monuments. So if you notice the kind of red line here, one of the proposals from the citizens was that they wanted to have an art walk along the waterway there in St. Louis. So they really were engaging the community about their public art monuments and projects and what was missing and what was valuable. They also talked about they also mapped sites like Hop Alley, which was a strong Chinese community there in St. Louis, and Mill Creek Valley, which was an African American community, and Native American mounds, historic mounds. Citizens wanted those places, even though they were erased, to be recognized by the city. Another group, a two-person collective actually, based out of Boston, is doing some interesting things. They call themselves the Department of Play, and they're really interested in establishing temporary play zones throughout the city that inspire intergenerational play and encourage kind of imaginative thinking and world building. And so they stage these kind of pop-up temporary exhibitions throughout the city, most of the time in kind of empty spaces, vacant lots, sidewalks, or plazas, where they engage people to participate in making art or doing something kind of creative. Here they have cut out foam pieces that they asked folks to build a structure. So they are really interested in engaging people with actually kind of creating on the spot temporary sculptures. They're also really interested in this idea of bringing communities together and exploring play as a kind of medium for forging kind of positive social relationships. At this particular park in Boston is really a kind of contested site. It borders two neighborhoods, one that is becoming more and more affluent and one that is having lots of economic problems. And so a big snow day, they decided to engage the citizens of both of these neighborhoods together to work to build a snow fort. So they're really interested in using public art and public engagement to spur conversations with their citizens. And then the last project that I'll talk about is a project that's done by an artist named Sonia Clark. It's called the Solidarity Book Project. She put out a call to people to choose a book that has taught you something about solidarity. And she asked for three responses. You could choose a book and alter that book. You could read a passage from that book or share a reflection from that book. She then invited people to share those things. So if you chose a book, she would send you a pattern and which would allow you to actually sculpt this fist on the edge of the book. And so as you can see, people then got a chance to talk about their books, but also kind of an art project as well. And so all over the world, people responded to this. She's from Amherst College, so she got the college to agree to match a dollar amount for every submission. So for every person that sculpted a book, they donated $100. For every person that shared a reading, they gave $50. And for every person that did a reflection about what they thought about the word solidarity, they gifted $25. So over the course of the project, they raised $100,000, which they then gifted to nonprofits that were serving Black and Indigenous communities to support literacy. So it was a really interesting project. And then she then took those books and displayed them in the Amherst Library and had an event where students came and read from different parts of the books that they had engaged with. So these are just a few ideas that we kind of talked about in terms of what could we do. I know that we already have like festivals, and there are things that happen already in Ann Arbor. Are there ways that we might also think about art, not as just something that you stand back and look at, but are there ways that we might think about public engagement with the art that we have, or thinking about other projects that could happen like pop-ups that would engage the public in our public art in Ann Arbor. Thank you, Vanita, for walking me through this.
Wow, Marianetta, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that presentation. That is really inspiring about the function of public art and all of these amazing projects. It sounds like the outreach group has done some great work over the past few months. And I mean, we want to be a support in any way, that we can for these projects going forward. I will definitely be attending the Monument Lab meeting for sure. Do we know? So we don't know if that's in person or.
I can double check.
Okay.
As far as I know, they were planning for it to be in person, but I haven't had the follow up, but I can check.
Can they let us know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a few more things to add from our meeting. So maybe Vanita, I could share my screen also. Would that be possible? Can I try it? Just easier if I can do both things at once. Okay. These are just the notes that I took from our meeting. So Marianette was talking about the survey of the community and all the other events that and projects. Then we wanted to co-opt volunteers. Happy to add expert or just keen volunteers. We're thinking about, would it make sense to join with the special projects group and the outreach group together? We have quite a crossover of membership with, they're just small groups each, but Peggy and I are on both of those. So that was something that might work for several things and save people going to quite so many meetings, possibly. Then there's engage with youth. So Peggy suggests partnering with the Art Centre, and I think that the Art Centre were holding off on something that Peggy was suggesting that we collaborate with, but perhaps in the future that we'll be able to go on and do some more collaboration with them and their youth work. Peggy, did you have anything to add on that particular one?
No, we were going to, for Youth Art Month, we were going to move forward and print a book. Well, there's a murals book that the Ann Arbor Art Center printed, and we were going to print additional copies of those to give to students for Youth Art Month, but we decided that it was just too expensive. So the Art Center has made really nice copies that are 8.5 by 11, so teachers will just print them out on their own. But we are planning to have, we're going to showcase Ann Arbor Public School artwork on the Main Street Area Association website. And we decided for Youth Art Month, because COVID is still lingering, and as much as it would be nice to put art downtown, people didn't feel comfortable with it. So for the month of March, teachers are going to present lessons on the murals around Ann Arbor, and then we're going to have a mural designing contest. The mural's not actually going to be painted, but we're going to have kids design their ideas for a mural on a certain building. And then I'm not on that committee to pick the winners, but there'll be cash prizes for elementary and middle school, high school students. So we are engaging for Youth Art Month. That's it.
Okay. We discussed briefly the Activating the Leadership Forum, which so far as I know, nothing's happened with yet, but we were going to give that some future thought. And I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that currently. Alison or anyone?
Sorry, you got me pulling up notes for a different section of our agenda. What were you actually asking me?
Well, we were talking about with the outreach, we were talking about activating the leadership forum at some point, seeing what we might do with them. I don't know if there's been any discussion around that in any other group.
Is that still its own working group?
It's no longer its own working group, I believe. I think that ended up going under the leadership working group. But the discussion I remember about activating the leadership forum was to talk about getting more volunteers on our working groups, particularly for certain projects where, we're trying to avoid quorums, right? So actually, to go back, Sophie, to your earlier point about the outreach working group and the special projects working group kind of melding together. The only issue, right, is that 4 is a quorum. So if we have over 4 people, technically we're not supposed to do that. So we were looking to, potentially start activating that leadership forum by looking at those names and reaching out to people to maybe come on to some of these working groups to help with particular projects. That's my memory. If anyone has has a different memory or something to add about a way to activate the leadership forum, now's the time.
That's also what I recall, is that we were saying that we could, rather than have an entire group that we are looking to reach out to, that we're just kind of looking at that list and saying, well, this person would be really good at, say, for our communications working group because they have a background in marketing or whatever, and inviting them to participate in that working group. And then potentially that network of people who we engage with at that point could at some point be that leadership working group. That name isn't accurate. Something forum was what we were calling it. Was it the leadership forum though? I don't remember it being called leadership forum. I remember it being something else, but I could be wrong. Because leadership implies they're leading us. I thought it was more of like they were, I don't know. I could be totally wrong. I don't remember.
No, I agree. Like we didn't use the word supporters, but like supporters of public art or something.
Yeah, I don't think it was leadership, but I would have, without digging through old notes, I don't remember what they were called. At any rate, I haven't created the forum. All that's been created is a list of people who could potentially advocate for us or help us in some way. And those people would be a great list of people to actually add to your working groups if you need some people with some specific skill sets. But by all means, if the outreach work group has any desire to take that on, they're welcome to.
Does everyone have access to that list of names? I recall sharing that recently, at least with Jamal and I believe Marianetta. But does everyone still have access to that list, or is that something that I should send out to the group again? Just so that we all have it, and maybe we give it a name refresh. I kind of remember it being the leadership forum.
And you know what? I'm looking at it right now. It's called the leadership forum. So I'm just crazy tonight. Sorry.
But we could definitely, give it a little rebrand in terms of the name. But does everyone have that list?
I don't know of this.
Okay, Lynn, I will definitely send you that list so you have access, and you can of course also add anyone that you think would be really useful. And what, now that we're kind of thinking about using this as an activation process, I believe that we did a kind of a brief description of at least a job title description of what that person kind of specializes in. So we, maybe we can take a look at the list we've created, any submissions that you submitted, maybe taking a look at those names and making sure that there's kind of a description of sort of skill set or job title or something like that would be helpful, maybe in terms of reaching out. And I believe the name of the person that submitted that person for the leadership forum is on there as well. So if you have any questions, you know who to contact. But I will definitely, I'll just go ahead and send it out to the group again. And we can take a closer look at that.
I just had it open, so I shared it with Commissioner Song.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Does Marianetta have it and Jamal?
I have it.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So the other thing we just discussed was having a series of pop-up events, and we were just kind of brainstorming here what else we might do. Public webinar conversation with the Golden Paintbrush Award winners. Ask if they have ideas for pop-up events and other public art projects, or just asking them about the projects they did. Just things, I don't know. Vanita seemed to think we couldn't put this on the website per se, but it would be nice if we could get it up on the city's Twitter feed or something. I don't know what the city has, but so that there's things that people can go to and find out about what people are saying about their own art projects within the city or other art projects within the city, so that there's a little bit more communication and back and forth. So we can't do the web page or the Instagram feed, I think. But maybe we can try and find another way to put things out there, like, you know, interviews and pictures and stuff like that. The city flag, as soon as that goes ahead, we want to try and be ready so that we can discuss what it is, what parameters there are, whether we're suggesting to the city administrator, whether the city administrator is suggesting to us, or a bit of both, what the parameters are for how the design should be, and whether, if we're having youth designs, whether we need a professional graphic designer to make the design, to clean it up, to make it a little bit more professional looking. There's also a TED talk apparently on good flag design. I can't remember who suggested that, but perhaps it could be Googled, or someone who knew it where it was can let us know where that was.
I think John shared that.
Sorry, who did you say, Alison?
John Katarski.
Okay. We might be able to just search it.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking that, you know, we need to have everything ready so that as soon as there's a yes from the mayor or city council, that we're kind of ready to go, rather than having another couple of months go by, which is so easy to let happen.
Yeah. I'd like to see us be ready to go with that in the fall. I think that'd be a good time to launch it. So hopefully we can get approval and move forward.
How do I get out of here? Stop share. There we go. Great. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sophie and Marianetta and Peggy. You guys did a lot of work, and these are all great ideas that we can keep working on and honing in. So thank you so much. Do we have?
Sarah, you're muted again.
Sorry, guys. I just wanted to say thank you again to our outreach working group for all of their hard work over the past 2 months. You had a lot to report on, and really, really great content. Very inspiring. Thank you. And then I think we can move on to our special projects working group, which we did meet. Sophie, did you want to take the lead on that, or I can?
Well, I have another sheet of minutes here if you'd like me to quickly run through that.
Sure, we can do that.
If there's anything you wanted me to screech to a halt while you say something exciting, then that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that again. Okay, can everybody see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so they're the A, B's, and C's of the list that we put together before, I think in December. Continue with the Golden Paintbrush Award, of course. Seems to have gone well. We might be a little bit more efficient next time as well, now that we've done it. Expand the public art tour to include non-city public artworks. We were just discussing this again. This is a kind of a brainstorm. Maybe even include a bit like that monument slab survey that Marianetta was talking about. Have people in the city say what they think are monuments that they would like to recognize, or should be monuments, or used to be monuments, so that we could make a map like that one. It seemed to be something that people enjoyed engaging with, and it came out with some interesting ideas and inspirations. So Vanita was saying the current collection includes city-owned art, but this would be kind of a separate project from the official city-owned art tour. So that's just a project we could work on, and we'll decide which way to go with it according to what else we're doing probably. Find more ways to include performance art in city celebrations. I think Jamal was leading discutant on this one. I don't know whether we should or could or would get involved in festivals, which seems to be going very well with Jennifer Goulet. West Park bandshell is in need of, or is under repair, but it's a wonderful thing, and we thought it would be nice to not only have that repaired and think about ways we could advance the use of it, but also maybe even have another one on the south side of town or another part of town, and to liaise with the Parks Department and talk about that. Another thing we thought about was the water treatment plant mural, whether we could get some kids from the schools to sing some watery songs to go with the unveiling ceremony. Again, that would probably be something for the fall. I don't know. Peggy was involved in that idea because obviously she's our school's correspondent. And Jamal was talking about the Youth Alliance. Jamal, can you add to this one?
I can chime in on that one. So I'm a part of this group. We don't have a name yet, but we got a little bit of funding from MCACA. I think, well, they might have changed. Did they change their acronym recently to something else? And I believe the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, but it's kind of spearheaded by Heather Martin from Youth Arts Alliance. And essentially we got to go ahead, the green light to display art in the Ann Arbor Courthouse, kind of resistance art for families that have been affected by the criminal justice system. So it was supposed to be June. It's kind of got pushed back to probably September now. But it could look a lot of different ways. We plan on doing like actual art pieces on display for a few weeks in the courthouse, but also like live performance, video pieces, audio pieces being played or seen as you enter the courthouse. So it's in the very early stages of kind of putting all that together, but I just kind of threw that out to the special project group as a potential for, you know, the work that I'm doing with my young musicians with Formula 734, which I could talk about that on the next one as well, but just an idea of some possible special projects.
Jamal, that project sounds really cool. One thing I would say that we found previously with the one public art project that we have within a court, like an area, is the security. Doesn't allow the public necessarily to come through as easily as one would like. So just kind of in advance, kind of figuring out how you can navigate that so that I'll feel welcome to come see the work would be ideal.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Jamal, do you want to talk about the community high school, used to be Jones School thing as well here?
Yeah, again, another project that I'm involved with. I'm kind of leading the music supervision. Actually, I saw on our list that we were just talking about, the leadership list, Donald Harrison was listed in the list, and he's doing a documentary on Jones School, which currently now is community high school. Jones School was an elementary school downtown Ann Arbor up until like 1965, I believe. And it was a predominantly Black school. That neighborhood was actually predominantly Black, like the Water Hill, Carytown area. I actually lived there when I was 3 years old back in 1983. It was about 50% Black then. But as you all probably know, it's very different now. And so Donald Harrison, a friend of mine, is doing this documentary, and I'm kind of helping with the music supervision. So I just kind of, again, threw out an idea. Maybe there's some way we could connect the potential release of this film with some performance, with a screening of it, I don't know how, where, when. It's probably a long ways away, but yeah, just throwing that out there.
That's what I was going to ask you. You're not, Jamal, you're not any closer to knowing when the release is going to be. You're still working. Okay.
Yep.
Jamal, if it's done and released and out by early October, we have that art fair that we do at the intersection of Ann and Catherine, that closes those streets. So, and that only goes until I think it's 7 each night.
Okay.
So potentially we could invite folks, you could have a big screen there, invite folks to sit in the streets and watch it sitting on, hopefully, the Black Lives Matter mural. That could be kind of cool. We can talk if that works.
Okay. Sounds good. Oh, and then, yeah, our film, Formula 734. Similar situation. We just got accepted for another film festival, the North Carolina Black Film Festival. So that will, again, delay the actual release of the film because film festivals are very particular about exclusivity. So, but once we get through this film festival process, that could be a potential space for some live art or live performance or art display.
Cool.
Sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so just a few more things here. There's the idea of art projects in neighborhood parks. Some of the parks have had those concrete animals on, like turtles and things to play on, and a lot of them are like falling apart or lost their color and things like that. And we were thinking it'd be fun to get some new ones invented, made, created, which would need obviously some kind of a budget and proposals and call for art and all that kind of thing. But it would be nice to get some animals back in our parks for the kids to play on. And also maybe some way that they definitely wouldn't be plastic, but maybe not even concrete. I don't know. We might have some other ideas about what they could be made of, but there's an awful lot of plastic out there. That's just my thought. The Black Lives Matter mural, do we know anything about where the paint is coming from? I don't know why that's in there. I don't remember about it, but does anybody know what that question was about?
I think we just talked about wanting to make sure that whenever it was done, that it was done permanently, so, or that it would last for a while. Because we talked about the fact that the Festifuels mural last year, it got rained out, and if someone's going to go to that effort to paint it, it needs to be there for a while.
Right, for sure. Does anyone have any information about that?
Well, I mean, we can look to the one in Ipsy. I don't know what kind of paint they use there, but we might also think about some sort of security, because that was vandalized early this summer. They had to be repainted.
I know initially that they were told it couldn't be permanent, but then I feel like Travis had gone through enough channels to figure out how to make it a permanent installation.
I think so too.
If I remember rightly, they said they were supposed to use chalk paint, which doesn't last, obviously. But then when the paint was donated, they were allowed to use that, even though it wasn't chalk paint, because it was donated, which sounds weird, but that's how I remember it as happening.
Yeah, well, so the paint that was used in Ypsilanti is actually like street grade paint, and that's ideally what we would use so that it doesn't wash away like the paint at the festivals one. And I think, like I was saying, I think Travis got it all kind of worked out that that's what they would be able to use. Last I had heard.
There was something somewhere else in our packet about the city was taking over the actual, kind of supervising the painting of it, which is, I assume, how they got around the rule saying it had to be temporary.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Right. So it would be a city administrator project versus a commission project.
Do we need to be involved in this?
Is it all in hand? It was just something we were asked for our support for.
Right.
I think actually that Black Lives Matter mural is actually going to be a council-driven initiative.
Not us, yeah.
Say that again, Benita.
I think it's a council-driven initiative for the Black Lives Matter mural on how the design and the development and the setup. But Councilmember Song, I think they have a meeting tomorrow to pull out a little bit more of that. So we probably would have more to share next month.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Then the last thing here is the Concentrate Media is starting a program, Voices of Youth, engaging in journalism. So this goes back to the idea earlier on the list about whether we could get more, or perhaps it was in the other group. Anyway, whether we could get more interviews, discussions, reviews of art in the city.
Yeah.
And whether we could collaborate with them.
Yeah, I can chime in on that as well. Yeah. Art kind of dialogue, reviews, but also the youth engagement part, youth outreach. I think I know that's probably, I think that's in another group, the outreach subcommittee, but I'm working with them around my Formula 74 music project with some young people. So again, I just thought that might be another avenue to get young people engaged in some art projects and maybe kind of the more journalistic review of some art stuff.
That might be a good tie-in to the discussion of the Golden Paintbrush Award winners, since some of those winners were from the Youth Art Month as well. But if there was some sort of pop-up discussion, if they could cover it, that could be really cool.
Yeah, I think it would be, this is one of these things where the special projects and communications seem to be crossing over, but I think it would be really nice to help publicize the Golden Paintbrush Awards, so that more people knew that they could nominate themselves or others for it, and it became much more well known as a thing that's happening regularly, because then it'd be more successful. Okay.
Thank you.
I had a good chat with Lisa Sauvé in Planning Commission, and and thinking about Parking Day coming up in September. I don't know if y'all remember that, where it's this like international effort of taking over parking spaces and designing them into parklets, either sitting in a parking space and playing chess or reading books or playing music. That's coming, and she had done that I think prior to even joining Planning Commission. But in my chat with her, I was saying, maybe we can start planning that in advance and just make that really art oriented. So Parking Day is September 16th. Sorry, my daughter's singing Frozen in the background. I hope you like Frozen. So Parking Day is September 16th. And she was wondering who she should, Lisa's wondering who she should be in touch with to kind of talk about that and see what that might look like. Because what we can do is maybe work with the DDA and see which parking spots, which businesses would be open to releasing their parking for this. I remember doing this before the pandemic, and Sweetwater's was had dedicated, I think, like two of their nearby parking spots, and people were able to set up AstroTurf and just kind of re-envision how parking can be activated. You see this in Toronto and Quebec, or I'm sorry, Montreal too, where they have pianos out in these spots for a day, or mini golf. So kind of like the pop-up events that we saw earlier in the presentation, but specifically on the theme of Parking Day.
That sounds great. Who did you say was on the council for that one? Lisa Dish, did you say?
No, it's Lisa Sauvé, Sauve. She's on Planning Commission. She's also part of the Art Space Initiative that that came forward too, and in that partnership with Avalon. I don't know if anyone went to that community outreach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would Lisa perhaps be interested in giving a presentation during one of our commission meetings?
Oh, on parking day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can ask her.
Okay.
Let me write. It's fun. It's really fun. I think I brought like a lemonade to one of them one year. I'm not
Has
really
it been
sure.
going on for quite a while? I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, parking day. I mean, if you Google parking day, it's just people do really fun things all around the world to celebrate. I think, yeah, parking day 2022. Yeah,
And is that
we
same
did
day
it 3.
Celebrated everywhere?
Yeah, it's the third Friday in September every year.
Okay.
A global public participatory art project launched by Rebar in 2005. People across the world temporarily repurpose street parking spaces and convert them to tiny parks and places for art, play, and activism. So if you go to myparkingday.org, you can see folks set up mini libraries, like mini cafes, little mini gardens for the day. I've seen pictures of folks put hammocks up. And you can see a map of what they do around the world too. And when we did it here in Ann Arbor, I think we used I have a lot of collapsible tables and chairs and benches from just hoarding them off of Craigslist and hosting neighborhood and street parties here in our neighborhood. So we did, I was able to drop off and share some of those in chairs, folding chairs. Yeah, you can see some kind of examples of that. So I can ask Lisa to come and speak more to this, but so maybe we can just start from there then.
Yeah, you can give her my contact, and maybe then I can loop Vanita in if we set a date that maybe she could give a little presentation and we could do some more discussion at a later meeting, because that sounds like a really fun idea. I think that would be great.
It's really dorky. People come up with really funny ways to use up a parking space.
I think it's a great way to use a parking space, more than just looking for one, right? And then we can do something more. So great. Thank you for sharing, Glenn.
Sure.
All right. So I think we can then move on to our communications working group. We were able to meet. I can speak quickly about some of the items we brought up, unless anyone else wants to give a stab at it first. I can go ahead and take the lead and then add on to it. So we talked about taking out another observer ad for the Golden Paintbrush Award, maybe for People's Choice Award, but also to just publicize nominations being opened for 2022. So our People's Choice Award voting closes March 11th. So I think feasibly, we're probably obviously looking at probably publicizing nominations for 2022 when those open again. Just talking about more routine posting on social media and press releases, how to implement that. We talked a little bit about, again, expanding that public art collection, linking to potentially the U of M collection, and figuring out the mechanics of adding that, whether that could be added to our tour or if that would be a separate web page. And then there are some just sort of basic updates to our website that we'd like to do. Jamal sort of took the lead on talking to Vanita about ways that we can just update our website on a more regular basis. Again, talking about publicizing certain events, or if that would be a different web page. So we're still working through the mechanics of that. And then coming up with some themes for communications. education on our current collection, projects going on, and some call to actions so that we're getting people engaged in what we're doing. And then perhaps looking at a survey of our Ann Arbor community in terms of where they'd like to see funding for arts going towards. And actually, it sounds like with the public engagement, we're kind of all on that same page about looking to the public to see how we can spend arts funding, getting more arts funding. So looking at that potential $500,000 and how we can implement that, looks like it would be, potentially also useful to maybe survey the community to see how they'd like those funds allocated.
So Sarah, I'm sorry. Two things. One, the different categories you mentioned about things that we were going to communicate about, like education and the golden paintbrush. Those were specifically categories we were looking at using social media to talk about, doing like a social media calendar and sending that to the communications department and hoping they would be able to send out that information for us, just to clarify. And then in my notes, when we talked about the survey, we were specifically talking about the ARPA funding, and there was already a survey that was out asking how people wanted funding to be used. And we were just talking about how we thought it was important that arts and culture was included in that discussion, and kind of were like glad Deb was doing that outreach, but saying that we should probably be a part of that as the Public Art Commission. Although that ship has pretty much sailed and we already talked about that. So I think we're good as far as that goes. I think we're already we're gonna get our opportunity to support funding going to artists. So that's good. And then I think the other thing we talked about that you didn't mention, which I might have just interrupted you too early, was we have the leftover money to do another ad, but we could also use some of that money to promote the water tower mural opening, and potentially actually pay young artists to come sing about music or sing about water and stuff like that. I hate inviting artists to do things and asking them to do it for free. So potentially using some of that money to pay for that.
Thank you, because I didn't have that on my notes. So, but I remember us talking about it. And, that is something that I can also bring up. I know that the date they're looking to reveal the mural is November 11th. But as we know, with construction projects in general, deadlines are set to maybe just be changed. So as we get closer to that date, we can, keep talking about that.
And the other thing that we also discovered in our discussion about adding the U of M's collection was that the U of M collection is actually already very well mapped on their own websites. So potentially just sharing links to those maps so that we, like Vanita said, we're not in the business of keeping track of their collection, nor do I think we want to get into that business. So linking to their already archived list of where all their pieces are so that they have control of updating their works, but we can kind of celebrate and say, hey, don't forget about these other great pieces that are in your backyard as well. So we didn't figure out how to do that, but we did find that they are all linked.
I wonder if they could reciprocate.
Maybe.
They couldn't or wouldn't.
That would be nice.
We could ask.
You can always ask.
But one of the things I wanted to say was I was listening to what Sophie was saying about different ideas she had about outreach and stuff, or that you guys had talked about. They play in perfectly to what we were kind of thinking about with our overall social media calendar. And so one of the things that we're kind of trying to work out is a system to regularly be sending information to the communications department at the city so that they are posting about public art stuff. And so if you guys have content or ideas about what that could include, definitely feel free, any of the any of the working groups, if you have something that you think needs to go out or should go out, like share it with us and we'll try to add that to that social media calendar. Keeping in mind that I know the city is very specific about what they will share, and it has to be specifically related to something that is Ann Arbor City. Previously, when I asked like, oh, this artist who made one of our pieces has a new piece going up, can we share that? And I was told no. So it has to be very specific to our own collection, or tied very closely to. We can always ask, but just keeping that in mind when you have your expectations about what they will share.
Thank you, Allison. David, did you have anything to add? We're good.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. My interest was in trying to expand the art map that we just talked about, and obviously the city isn't going to let us really do much of anything with that, so it's kind of not worth spending a lot of time talking about.
Well, it could be, I'm also on Police Oversight Commission, and they have their own, I mean, the website's a bear. Our own city website will be going under, I mean, the city, Mr. Dohoney was saying today that they're looking at redoing the city website probably the end of this year. There's just too much to fix so that it would look like it's something of this century. So, so the Police Oversight Commission has our own Twitter feed. You know, there's also options of having a link tree site or, you know, like a wiki of different artwork. So there are things that the commission can probably do without just relying on the city communications department, so that you can get some stuff out in a more timely manner.
We had a Facebook.
Does.
I don't know if this is what you meant, but we had a Facebook page, we had a Twitter page, we had a Instagram, I believe, and we had to take them all down. Oh, actually, they didn't take them down. They're just no longer related to the commission. They are just general pages because communication said that we weren't allowed to have them.
Yeah, I guess that sounds really inconsistent with what other commissions are doing. I'll ask why. And I don't know if they have a drastically different public engagement charge. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Yes, is that why, Vanita? Okay. I
mean, it is one of our charges is to promote the collection. So it's one of our challenges is how do we promote it without our own access to promotional tools. So, which is why we're trying to work through the communications department to be more active on their social media channels.
Well, we're getting a lot of good support from communications and the things that we are asking them to put out on our behalf. But it's in part of their control, and it just doesn't seem. We do see a lot of information for a lot of the other groups out there. And if the commission is just looking for some general location to share things regarding public art throughout the city, having to go through communications for all of that makes it difficult, because I think they're selective in what they want to accept from us. But they've been helpful with the things that we've asked for recently, so we're excited about those things.
Have they got a description of what they will and won't post?
I don't know that we've ever gotten a description, Sophie.
Nothing in writing.
Right.
We've had talks, some discussions, I think last year, about some sort of boundaries with what we can share. I mean, I think starting with the social media calendar is probably the best way to really see what will and will not be kind of accepted and approved. Once we have a better idea of that, then, you know,
my hope was to
see where those lie.
Yeah, my hope was to give them an overabundance of information to share so that they would maybe share a quarter of it, and then we would be getting some promotion.
So I think our next step is definitely to meet again and, you know, maybe come to that meeting with a few of those ideas, and then we can kind of just put them together and get them out in front of communications. So to restate Allison from earlier, if you have any ideas of things to share, please submit them to Allison, myself, and Marianetta, and David too, for the next 2 months.
Also, I'm sorry, we should also take advantage of the Golden Paintbrush right now, because it's also an opportunity to start to push them for a little bit more visibility. And I don't think that, share any ideas that you might have that you want right now to try, at least, just like Allison said, put 10, 20 out there. Maybe we only get 5, 2, or 1, but it's worth a shot. I think that they're open to it. I just don't know that communications understands from the perspective of art what we really want to do and how we want to share. It seems like when we ask for information that links us someplace else, they're real leery about that. So things that belong to the city public art and the initiatives here in the commission might be a better aspect to move them and have them think about some of the social media things that we've asked for in the past. Maybe. And I'm just throwing it out there again, because we've tried a couple of different ways and we get told no, but with the Golden Paintbrush and the success of that, we might be able to open up some other kind of avenues depending on what they say and how we can do it.
You know what would be really interesting? So before I ran for council, I was on the library board. And I don't know if you're familiar with the summer games the library hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And how insanely competitive Arborites are in collecting these points. Has the Arts Commission ever worked with the staff at the library and maybe including public art as part of the game? Because I mean, they did this thing with the city before, where if you visit every single city park, then you get, I don't know, like 1,000 points or something. As part of the scavenger hunt, you get points if you go to Josie Parker's office, who is retiring, but maybe there's a way, and then maybe there's a way to work with library staff to promote our public art out and about in the community in a different way. And besides, the library, they publish the arts magazine, right? Oh gosh, I'm spacing on the name right now.
Does it matter that the Art Commission is an advisory body within the city? Does that make us collectively a different type of commission?
I don't know. I mean, they work with the parks folks. Like library works with the parks folks, the city administrator's office. It might be just worth a conversation, because I know the librarians got working on the summer game pretty early. And they work on it for a year. Yeah.
Parks is different, because Parks really truly has its own initiatives citywide. And when we talk about the Art Commission, it just is a little different. We're talking about art within the city, but they don't always see us that way. So we do have a hard time trying to find a road to walk down very carefully.
I love the summer games idea. I think that could be a really fun connection. And if you want to connect me with somebody, or I can just reach out to someone, I think that would be really fun. We could do that.
I mean, even if it's just oh, sorry, that's my son. I have 2 children. Even if it's just to highlight the public pieces of the city, I guess the city.
Yeah, it could just be our public tour. It could be that they visit each of the things and get, rewarded for that. That would be cool.
A couple of years ago, the library staff also had on their training day, they had worked with an organization called Building Matters Ann Arbor at the time. So what is it? It's not the training day. It's there's a day off where they do like an in-service training. And then they actually did a tour through Building Matters Ann Arbor on the racial history of housing downtown. So a walking tour. So maybe that's also another way of actually having librarians walk our public art, because they're the ones who can help inform, residents who come through the library asking for resources. So that was the idea behind that effort, because at the time, it was part of our Black Lives Matter outreach and doing, having DEI expectations for the board itself and unbiased training for the board, and not just for management, but also participating in these trainings and growing our own understanding of Ann Arbor's racial history and segregation, was actually physically walking around the neighborhoods and talking about the history. So they have, I just point that out as an example of an organization that already has, walking towards as a consideration for staff. And I think the idea was eventually to have it somehow accessible to the community, but I don't know if they've actually gone down the road, but I'll make a conversation with staff. I like doing that. The librarians are are amazing. And there's also art in the libraries too. So that the ladies of the Library Association pays for. So if you go through the downtown branch, especially, there's some really nice pieces. So that's not part of the city collection, but it's in the city.
It sounds like definitely making some connections with the library staff in general for these, different initiatives will be a great way to start. I love the summer games idea. So thank you again, Lynn. I think we can definitely move forward on some of those items. All right, so I think we can move on to fundraising and development, that working group. We did not meet, so we have nothing new to report. And then we do have I skipped one, sorry. The leadership working group, Jamal and I, we did not meet. So we do not have anything new to report this month. And then our annual chair and vice chair renewal and election project were recently elected. So we're all set on that right now. So does last minute things, anything else from working groups, or I think we're good to go and move on from there. All right. So I think then we are ready to adjourn. Thank you all so much for your time this evening. Wonderful ideas and inspiration. A lot of work, obviously, and discussions have been going on the last 2 months. That's wonderful to see. All right. Do I have sorry.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
I was double checking. I think as far as I can tell, Monument Lab is going to be live on the 17th at the Michigan Theater.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marianetta. And yes, I should have asked if there's anything else just in general that anyone would like to share before adjourning this evening. Okay, we're ready for that Monument Lab presentation. That sounds really great. Glad to hear it's in person too. So, all right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Sophie. So we don't vote after that, right? We just adjourn the meeting. Yes, okay. Still getting used to it. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening, and we will check back in April.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Have a good time, Sophie.